Hello, and welcome to Guide 102 in a series for CESS 2.0. CESS 2.0 is the 2021 upgrade of EOS Explorer and CESS 1.0. Consider this guide a quick start for folks already familiar with the CESS 1.0 application. Guide 206, CESS Overview, will provide the comprehensive review of CESS 2.0 features. New users may want to start with Guide 206. We'll begin with a few configuration recommendations, followed by the actions that will allow you to link your estimate to a standard database, and we'll cover the new locations of commands that the existing CESS users are used to using. There's a new ribbon that houses the commands, and we'll break that ribbon into sections. Lastly, we'll walk through completing the costing of an estimate, including edits to the totals page. This will replicate your workflow for costing an estimate that you would have created out of FMSS, having Navigator creating a shell estimate for you. You would come to CESS and cost that estimate, check it out, make sure it will validate, and then return to Navigator for the validation and publish to FMSS steps. We'll list the section start times on the second slide in this video, so you need not view the guide in order, and you can easily advance to a section of interest. There will be more than one way to the links you may need. We demonstrate a single path in this guide using the icons. There are many right-click context menus throughout the application that will produce the same workflow. Also, see Guide 100 for logon details and accessing help. Let's take a look at CESS 2.0. There are option settings available to each user. These options will define the default appearance of the spreadsheet, fonts and overline, indicate file locations, categories for one-time items, and other options. Let's look at the recommended settings for CESS users. You access options by clicking the File tab and Options. We recommend these selections to start with. You're free to come back at any time and change them if they don't suit you. A principal one you'll want to pay attention to is the skipped mark manually adjusted factors when repricing from factor table. A new feature in CESS 2.0 is that factors can be edited at the item level. Previous versions relied on a table that applied to all items within a specific phase, and individual items could not be edited, and now they can. Each estimate, as it's created from FMSS, is assigned a factor table. That factor should apply to all items and all cost categories in your estimate. If you edit that factor, you will fail validation. So restoring an estimate where factors have been edited is a simple task. You simply reprice with the current factor table, and it will automatically restore the factor that you need to pass validation, unless you check this box. So we're recommending from the start, just leave this unchecked in the event you inadvertently edit a factor and then try to restore it through the reprice. You can change the ribbon to the classic toolbar icons you're used to in CESS 1.0. We're thinking, leave this unchecked, give the ribbon a try. We think you'll adapt faster by using the more modern look and feel of a Windows ribbon. If you happen to be a user that exports your estimates to Excel, you now have the option of that export including formulas into the Excel sheet. Displaying overline totals when expanded is not a default setting. It's something that we prefer, but you may not, and you may choose to deselect overline totals when expanded. Let's take a look at what that means in the spreadsheet. I'll close options for the moment, and we'll move to a spreadsheet that's populated with some costs. And what you see when overlines are exposed when expanded is that items themselves, of course, have costs and totals. But even when the spreadsheet's expanded to the detail level, the subtotals, or what we refer to in CESS as overline totals, are turned on all the time, whether your items are expanded or collapsed. Now, these totals are always here. The checkbox just determines whether they're turned on and you can see them, or they're turned off. Let's take this view, and let's turn off the overline totals when it's expanded. We go back to File, to Options, and deselect Display Overline Totals when expanded. We'll save lower right and close lower right. And notice that the subtotals that are listed above the items, not below, are gone. Now they're there. If we collapse the spreadsheet, the subtotals turn on to the level that we're collapsed to. So we happen to be collapsed to the phase level, so those subtotals are turned on at the phase level. If we collapse again to the group level, we'll see the subtotals are turned on there. So the math is always done. The subtotals are always there. The question you're answering with the checkbox is, we'll expand all and show the item level again. Do you want to see those subtotals when you're expanded at the item level? Some folks like this because it's less busy and it's easy to find and concentrate on your item content. Some folks would like to see those subtotals all the time, even when they're expanded, and that's what the checkbox is for. And now the totals are turned on all the time, whether you collapse or you expand. Let's go back to Options. Look at a couple more choices you have. Folders. You may choose to create reports out of CESS. Those reports will default to this location. Now, this path has my name in it. It should have your name in it. And I recommend you don't change this path. Take the default. It should be there. If it's not there, contact FMP Help Desk. If you create one-time items, you can default which cost categories are turned on automatically. You can use all 5 cost categories in a one-time item. The question is, do you want to start with any particular cost categories? This is mostly database. Doesn't affect us. We don't have rights to edit the database, so these choices aren't applicable. You will get messages as you're estimating if you happen to, for instance, change a price or an item description, and you have that item in multiple times. We call that like items. A message will appear asking you, do you want to update the duplicate items, the like items? And you can say yes or no. You can also click Don't Ask Again once you make that choice. Well, it may be that you, over time, change your mind, and you may want to switch from not updating to updating, and this button will reset all the Don't Ask messages. Lastly, participation in the PEP program is not applicable to us. You can either clear the checkbox or leave it checked. It makes no difference. So the operable choices are here. You can try these defaults that we recommend, and obviously Come back and change them anytime you wish. In CESS, we populate our spreadsheet with items from a database. To do that, our estimate needs to be linked to the database we want to copy the items from. And that database name is always displayed in the title bar here, upper left in your application. There are a couple of instances where you may need to link your database to an alternate database or restore your original database link if for some reason it loses the link to that database. The steps are as follows. Click File, Open Standard Database. CESS Data in CESS 2.0 is a standard database. It's known as a standard database. When you select Open Standard Database, you'll get the list of all the CESS databases we have available to you. The current year database will have a green checkbox as the default. And typically, if you're updating, one of your chores will be to select the current year database when you're working with any of the previous year databases, like we are here with CESS Data 20. So we'll select CESS Data 21 in this case. You click OK. And the estimate then is linked to CESS Data 21. And it will normally maintain that link until you change it. The ribbon is divided into tabs, and each of our sections will be titled with a tab name. We'll start in this section with the Home tab, and within a single tab, we'll see that the commands are grouped, and each grouping, of course, will have a name. So we'll start with Estimate Views and work our way across left to right. Now remember, the video getting started is for existing users of CESS 1.0. Those users already know what these commands do. We're here simply to show the new position and the new look of the commands. You'll get a full explanation of the command's properties in CESS Guide 206, CESS Overview. To access the Totals page, you'll click the Totals command here in Home, Estimate Views, Total. And that launches the Totals page. Information and notes are disabled. The control for estimate information and estimate notes is in Navigator. So these icons, they are commands, they do function, but you'll find that the resulting screens are not editable. The exception is Setting. There is one command in Settings that might be of interest to some folks. Typically, we recommend that you do not change the calculation bases for units of time, that you leave the 8 hours per day, 40 hours per week. It can be edited. It'll take a deeper discussion than we're going to cover here in this guide to set you up for the circumstances where you might take advantage of this. You can get advanced training on CESS in a CESS Advanced class, but for the time being, we'll recommend that you just leave these default hours alone. The one toggle that you might be interested in is this quantities toggle here, automatically calculate overline quantities. So I'll take the opportunity here to walk you through this and show you what this potentially can do for you. Typically it's unchecked, so the automatic calculate is not turned on. Let's turn it on briefly here, go back to the spreadsheet, and I'll give you a quick explanation of what this can do for you. When auto calculate is turned on, you can use the overline takeoff quantity to auto calculate based on numeric values in the lines contained under this overline. And it does it by matching the takeoff quantity unit. So if we wanted to express this overline in tons, we simply type ton here, and when we remove the fixed quantity, it will auto-calculate any item underneath it that has a corresponding TN or ton or matching unit. If we wanted to calculate the cubic yards in the overline, we just match the cubic yards and the line items below it, change this to CY, and it auto-calculates exactly the way the checkbox expresses. It auto-calculates the overline quantity by matching the unit. If we use square feet here and ask it to auto-calculate by removing the fixed quantity, sure enough, it picks up every numeric value that has a corresponding SF. Since these are different items, generally what we'd want to see here is a single 8,000 square feet, not an auto-calculation. So folks work around that by picking one unit and slightly changing. We'll go SQFT instead of SF. And if we change that unit, then we only calculate the 8,000 square feet that we want on that overline. So once again, it auto-calculates based on matching a corresponding unit that you choose. It's user-defined, and it does the math based on your definition. Sometimes you want it to count all the eaches here. You just put in each, and it'll total them all up for us. And sometimes you just want one of these in the overline. So one method is to change the unit so that you have a matching. And it's case sensitive. So if you went EA, for instance, here, and went EA here, then you'd only pick up the 35. We'll go back, look at that one more time. Again, in quantities, if you check the box, it will begin to do the overline calculations the way you've set up the corresponding takeoff units. We'll go ahead and toggle this off for the rest of our explanation. Let's look at the next command, details. Details is a favorite. If you want to examine or edit content on a row-by-row basis, a great way to do that is to turn on the detail window, and each row that you click on will have focus, and the detail window will return to you the content of the row that you're on. So you're not managing columns to see the maximum amount of detail. You can do it in an encapsulated view here, where the information we tend to want to look at and possibly edit as estimators is displayed here for us, from the 5 cost categories to the notes field to WBS values. WBS is an option, it's not required. Unit costs are expressed here as well, and the resources tab that we talk about extensively in the overview 206, and how the unit prices are calculated for labor and equipment using the resources, is all encapsulated here and right at your fingertips, including the crew and the rate tables that are associated with this item. The detail window also works on overlines. Editing of the content is limited here. The one field you can edit is the notes field. But as you're clicking through item by item, you can also click on an overline and edit the notes field on the fly if you choose to do that. Now there are better methods of batch editing quantities and batch editing cost amounts, but for individual item by item work, the detail window is a favorite. So you can access it from the ribbon with this command. You can also right click from any row, anywhere on the row, and get your item detail view. Sequence tabs at the bottom of the spreadsheet determine what the groupings are and what the fields are in the groupings that sort your spreadsheet. Sequence tabs can be user defined. You get a set that are defaulted for you. But if you want to build your own sequence or edit existing sequences in your estimate, click the sequence command, and you have a dialog where you can build, edit, rename the tabs, add colors, make visible or hide existing sequences. Related to sequences, we have layouts. You can pick layouts that are predefined for you in the shared layout list. These layouts are here for you to use. They've been built for you, but they are not editable by you. You share these with the entire team. Any layout that you pick can be displayed here, and you can click a Save As and type another name or even the same name for it and make it a personal layout. Now that version of the layout will be editable by you. Anything that's personal is yours. No one else can see it. No one else can edit it. You own it, and you own it in every estimate. You can also create your own layouts on the fly. Edit will allow you to edit any personal layout. You'll get the layout dialog here where all the columns are displayed. You determine visible, width, background colors. On the right-hand side, you'll have column selections that control the grouping columns, meaning the columns that are displayed in your sequences. And different and new in CESS 2.0 is the fact that every layout now works with every sequence tab. You no longer have to build a layout for every sequence tab that you built. The groupings change based on your selections of sequence tabs, and you can pick any layout now to work with any grouping. We'll cover this in depth in CESS Overview 206. Spreadsheet actions, expand, collapse, and this is new for us. There's a collapse all and expand all. So collapse will work. We'll collapse one level at a time. Each click is a level. So we roll the items into phases. If we click again, we roll the phases into groups. Expand all will take us right to the item level in one click. Previously, we only had one expand and one collapse, and now you have the expand all, collapse all. There are times when your estimate contains several of exactly the same item, meaning that the item has the same phase and item number, the same description. It's possible to have different quantities, but the same quantity unit and the same pricing. And the combine will allow you to take those multiple items and combine them into one row. It obviously totals them up for you, so you see the total of all the items. When the spreadsheet is in combine mode, the spreadsheet is uneditable. So if you ever wonder, you're working in your spreadsheet and you're trying to edit something and you wonder why you can't edit it, check and see if combined items are turned on. Under certain circumstances, you may have sequences and groupings that contain many fields. Phase item, only 2 columns, doesn't take up that much real estate. But occasionally you'll get something like PMIS report where we have 4 full columns here. I'll collapse this up so you can see populated columns. And you may decide that you'd like to get some of this real estate back. Well, minimize overlines is the equivalent to columns what combine item is to rows. If we minimize overlines, it takes whatever sequence you're in and whatever grouping elements you have here and condenses them in one column. It includes the description if you choose that option and gives you a little bit more real estate back. This is great for developing your deliverables and reports. It leaves you more room for column content in terms of pricing, productivities, hours, things like that, and takes the groupings and pushes them into one single left-hand column. Items and bids, we don't see that being terribly useful to you. Bid grid is a feature in CESS that we don't train on until the advanced class. But you do have a capability within CESS where you can record subcontractor bids and then select a particular subcontractor to be returned to your estimate. And this button, when it's clicked, will show you the items that contain those subcontractor bids. Same with show highlights only. We don't expect you to take advantage of the individual item factoring capabilities. CESS is designed to apply a single park location factor as a factor table to every cost category and every item in your estimate. If that's not done, the estimate will not pass validation. This button would show factors that have been edited and also highlighted. It's not just edits that show with this command, it's edits that have been highlighted. So we don't see much use for us here for CESS. There is now, this is new, a new command for you in CESS 2.0. If you edit something, let's zero out this 8,000 square feet, and you decide you want it back, there is now an undo. And notice how it came right back when we click the undo. There's also a redo, so once you've undone, you can go forward again. Not everything you do in a spreadsheet, though, is undoable. Only specific entries, only specific edits can be undone. Assigning WBS, for instance, move, copy, move, there are functions in the spreadsheet that cannot be undone. Commands here, cut, copy, paste, are your typical Windows cut, copy, paste. So if you have content, could be a single field. The content of this field could be cut, copy, pasted. If you have a whole item row, for instance, and you want to move it to another estimate, you could do that with copy and then paste in the adjacent estimate. Move, copy, move. This is not cut, copy, paste. It functions completely differently. It's a command that assigns WBS. If we wanted to take all these items that don't have a PMIS comp WBS value and assign them in a batch way a value, we can do that with move, copy. Again, it's not cut, copy, paste. It's assigning WBS values. We'll hit the list button here, and we'll just grab component A. And what we're saying is move these items into component A. And we want move for the default here, not copy. You click OK, and it's assigning the PMIS comp value, component A, to all the items that were formerly unassigned. Let's click on a row. Let's use our detail button. Let's go to the WBS tab, and we see that comp is populated now. So it assigned that value to all the items using the move, copy, move command. You can also batch multiple items with the adjust value feature. This is CESS 1.0's adjust column. If you wanted to globally change the labor amount in all your items here, you can right click on the column and there's the adjust command. Same as this one, and you get the adjust column dialog. The driver here is adjustment type. You can adjust by percentage, multiply, divide, replace, add, and spread a value, and so on. This is the driver. This is the operative command in here and how it does the math. And here's where you put the value, the percent or the multiplier or the divisor, depending on your method. You'd put that value here and then you'd click OK. Now remember, you still have to pass validation, so you would get warnings on all your labor values if you chose to use this. But it can also be used from an overline, meaning if you adjusted from here, it would adjust all the items in here, and you can even adjust one single item. So one way to change a value rather than just typing a different value, if you used adjust on a single value and you put in a replace, say of 7,000, it was 8,000, now we're going to replace it with 7,000. Adjust leaves behind a little triangle. Now this triangle does not print on reports, but it's here in your spreadsheet to let you know that you had adjusted that quantity. The advantage to using adjust rather than just typing the 7,000 is if we right click again, let's use the button this time. If we click and get focus and we click Adjust, the adjustment type can be Undo. So having the red triangle and using the Adjust as opposed to typing, the big advantage here is that you can undo it and restore it to its original value. You also have, from most numeric fields, even a price field or takeoff quantity field, a calculator. So if you need help in coming up with another number, you want to divide by 2, you've got a calculator here at your fingertips the whole time. You can also right-click. Again, many context menus do the same thing with the ribbon, and access the calculator here. There is a find in your spreadsheet. And depending on the sequence that you're in, so we're in phase item and we're sequencing by group and phase, so we can go to the phase list, go to the group list, find a value, drop it in here, and then in large estimates, for instance, then you could click the Go button and it would look for that phase, look for that group. A favorite, though, is to search by item description. If you knew you had a particular part or piece in a large spreadsheet and you wanted to find that location, you couldn't remember where it was, you can go ahead and type that value in here. It would find it for you. Gee, I know I've got felt in here, but I've forgotten where it is. And it finds that in your description. And when you double click, it gives you focus on that row. You can also scan your estimate for incomplete items. Click Scan once and we'll find the first item. Of course, our summary items don't have quantities and aren't supposed to have quantities. But the scan is going to find every field that it thinks is incomplete. Now in our case, those are complete, so we just keep clicking Scan till it drops down to the next incomplete entry. We're showing sub here, so it says, well, if they're showing the sub column, there should be a sub amount. And it's just going to motor through and find every incomplete entry it possibly can find. Notice we know they're incomplete because they've got that nice blue background. And because there's no crossfoot total, it's going to consider these items incomplete. Help we cover in Guide 100. We cover all the help for Navigator and CESS there, along with showing you where the location of the guides are and things like that. But let's go ahead and click it once here. It can be handy for you. Help Topics is probably the favorite, and it will launch an entire book of the features in CESS. Table of contents, you can march right down here. There's also a context menu if you want to do a search. So you can see your topics are listed here with down arrows with triangles that will expand your topics. And you also have a search. If you were looking for functions, we could type that in and we'd get returns that contain the text value function. Live chat. This is for the live chat to the native company that builds CESS for it, called Sage. Don't click live chat. It's not going to send you to the help desk. And that's the home ribbon. We'll move to the Takeoff ribbon and start with the Takeoff grouping. Item Takeoff. Item Takeoff launches the familiar 3-paned window with the database list in the upper left panel. A right click gets you the same context menu that contains search and sort item list by. Also, your database list collapse and expand are here as well. We'll scroll for a few items. Double click expands. The same double click will add an item to an item grid. If the item has an embedded formula, the variables will appear in the upper left Takeoff pane. And you can also use drag and drop. You can populate the quantities manually, or if you choose, you can enter variable values in the variable pane and use the Add Pass button to execute that calculation. Remember that Item Takeoff does not add items to your spreadsheet until you click OK. And we'll close. Next, Assembly Takeoff. Double-click opens Assembly Groups to expose the assemblies, and a double-click launches the assembly. As you know, the items are gathered for you, and you can reliably put values in the variable pane here, add pass, and your item quantities are populated. Same as before, your WBS codes are exposed here in the item grid of the assembly. You can add values here if you choose. Multiple passes, replace passes, and undo passes. Pass notes, and you still have the right click on the assembly name will get you to a context menu that lets you view the audit trail of your passes. The items again are not added to your spreadsheet until you click OK, and we'll close the assembly. Next in the ribbon is Model Takeoff. Same as CESS 1.0, slightly different color schema. Double-click expands the assembly groups. A single click selects the model, and the Interview button becomes active. You can click the Interview button. New to CESS 2.0 is the model reference will be pre-populated with a date and timestamp. In CESS 1.0, the model reference was blank, and you were forced to type in a model reference. Still a good idea to identify the model in some way, especially if you were planning to run the model more than once in the same estimate, and identifying it as a specific unit. Variable inputs are the same, and checkboxes may lead you to more questions. So a bit of nested logic where this checkbox led to another numeric value prompt. You've completed the interview. Click OK. You can scan for incomplete values. You get a success message. We'll clear that. Click OK again. We close the interview. We launched from the database list of models to get to a model where an interview is completed. As before, you click Estimate. The estimate list will show models where the interview has been completed. A green dot means it's error-free, green for go. A red dot indicates there's an error. You can manually put the model on hold. If you're not ready to generate it at this time, you can close your estimate, open it again, take the model off hold. If you need to, you can go back and complete the interview. In our case, we're ready to generate. We get the Generate Models dialog. Because we selected it ahead of time, the checkbox is pre-selected. But here's where if you had various models, if you had various roof repair on various buildings, you might choose not to generate them all at once. There may be reasons why you want to hold back, generate some and not others. We'll go ahead and generate our model. We click OK. And model generation success message. And the model items are now added to our spreadsheet. Close Model Takeoff. We're going to go now to OneTime Item. Same as before, no changes here. You're required to pick a phase from the database. And from here, after the phase is selected, we can generate any type of item that we want. We can pre-fill our quantity and unit, and we can go directly to item detail to complete the entry. We'll just do a material for a toolbox, no labor. Click Save, and the one-time item is added to our spreadsheet. One-time items always have 4 hyphens for an item number. Quick Takeoff. You'll remember this is where the database item list appears, and you're able to copy items directly from the list into your spreadsheet. You can choose to put quantities in now if there's an embedded item by clicking Enter Dimensions, or clearing the box will allow you to take the item directly to the spreadsheet. Drag and drop, and add the quantity. Adding WBS values is an option. It is not required. And you have the opportunity with the default values command to launch the default values dialog, where you can pre-select WBS codes, and these values will be added to any items you copy into your spreadsheet, regardless of the method. So once this is populated, every item copied in, whether it be item takeoff, assembly takeoff, model takeoff, every item will be cross-coded with the values that you enter here, as long as you leave this dialog open during your takeoff. If you close the dialog, it stops populating the items. If it's open, it will populate items. Repricing grouping. We'll start with crews. The dialog is identical to CESS 1.0. Here's where you can either pick labor or equipment or both, and you can reprice your estimate using database rate tables or estimate rate tables. You can also reprice using the estimate crews, or if you think crews have been updated, you can update the crews from the database here. There are several report options, including a preview. Very handy to preview prior to running reprice crews, so you know exactly what's going to change in your estimate. From database, another part of updating an older estimate into a current year estimate, you would select the cost categories. Typically you'd pick all of them. Again, preview, a wise choice. It'll give you a variance report showing you the old price and the new price, and will show you the delta. And applying your park factor, you're going to use the from factor table. It's no longer called CCI, it's called from factor, but the list is identical to CESS 1.0. You'd simply pick the database version of your park factor table and apply that during an update. You'll get a warning message that these are going to change the prices. Well, that's exactly what we want, and you always say yes to this. And you can see the cost change here. The next two are here. I'll explain them, but unlikely this would be part of any typical workflow. Adjust by percentage. This would allow you to take the cost categories in your estimate and manually adjust them. You might take your labor up 10%, your material down 5%, and so on. Again, this would throw many warning messages during validation. Likely it wouldn't fail, but you have to have good reason to do this. But it's here, and you can use it. There's a preview again, so you can look at the variance report prior to running the reprice estimate by percentage. And even less used would be clear prices. This would literally go cost category by cost category and remove the pricing in your estimate. Unlikely that this would be part of normal CESS workflow. When you're running assembly takeoff or item takeoff, we'll launch item takeoff again for the next and last grouping called updates here in the takeoff ribbon. And we'll just grab a couple of random items. If during your item takeoff or during assembly takeoff you felt it would be beneficial to save the item grid as an assembly, the minute you have items populated here in the item grid, you'll notice that the Save as Assembly icon is now enabled, and it would allow you to save any item grouping you would come up with as an assembly. Now, this assembly only exists in this estimate as a one-time assembly. If you've gone to the trouble to gather these items together and you think you're going to need them again, that's where Save as Assembly can come in very handy. I'll cancel this. And that's the takeoff ribbon. Reports tab. Estimate Reports Grouping. Spreadsheet. The spreadsheet report is the best way to get your spreadsheet layouts out into a deliverable. You can export as a PDF or as an Excel file, and now with CESS 2.0, that Excel file will include formulas if you click the formula option we discussed in the first section. Let's walk through one set of report options. These options will apply to many of the subsequent reports we look at. Let's take one pass through report options. The key to being successful with the spreadsheet report is clicking Report Options and then clicking the big button lower left, Pre-fill from Spreadsheet. This is the button that loads your spreadsheet report into the report writer. From here, it's just a series of choices you can make. Allocate add-ons. Half your add-ons typically can be allocated into your spreadsheet if you choose the profit, overhead. The unallocated add-ons like profit and overhead will always remain on the totals page whether you allocate or not. Combine items is always popular, whether you want a cover page or not, and then whether you're printing estimate totals and whether you want those estimate totals on a new page. Typically, you format your spreadsheet layout in the groupings or sequences that you want. And when you click the Pre-fill from Spreadsheet, the sorting is pre-filled with whatever groupings and sequences you've used in the layout you pre-filled from. But you can modify it here if you choose to. This works the same way Building a Sequence tab works. You can remove the fields here and add fields here and come up with whatever groupings you want on the fly. We're going to accept the pre-fill grouping phase. Summary levels can also be controlled here. Again, when you pre-fill from spreadsheet, since our spreadsheet was exposed down to the detail level, it defaulted with detail, but you can uncheck this box and actually roll your report up into any of the elements that you have listed here as your sorts or sequences. We'll leave it with the default. Range, this would allow you to print a partial report, and it will allow you to pick from the highest most sort that you have in your sequence. In our case, it would be group. So you would go group to group, and you could have up to 5 page breaks if you want to print a partial report. Font and layout is for row control. All your sort rows will be listed here, 10 levels down to detail. and this is where you can control the font for those rows. Page setup, almost always on the first pass through, you're going to want to go here and set up some margins. Fit to one page wide is almost always required. Pages tall, again, almost always left blank, as you want it to waterfall across pages. But you don't want to be standing at the printer, if you use a printer, with Scotch tape trying to tape together the multiple pages in terms of wide. So one page wide is always desirable. When you have a lot of columns in a CESS report, and CESS has lots of information, therefore lots of columns, landscape seems to be a favorite, and a slightly larger paper size, 11 by 17 is popular, or legal size, to get that content on that single page that you've directed it to do here. We'll go ahead and hit preview here. You do have a preview. Cover page first and then next page, and an exact pull from the spreadsheet as you designed it. And you can page down into the till you get to the totals page and so on. Easy to get roll-ups and summary levels. You can come back to your sort report and say, no, I'd really like, instead of detail, I'd like to roll that up. I'd like to roll that up to the phase level. And a much more condensed report. So the operations here are identical really to CESS 1.0, except for this last step in which you can save the layout. Now, as you can see, we went through this dialog. We made quite a few choices. It's a spot of work. So why not save that layout for future use? And then you would never have to make those choices again. It would be saved under a name that you could get to. I've saved this previously, called it Summary Category Totals. But let's save again so I can show you the dialog here. We'll click Save Layout. And notice that you're going to save it as a personal layout. You won't be able to save a shared layout. That's an admin role. But you save your layouts, and we call these managed report layouts, as your own personal layout that only you can see and only you can edit. So let's call this Summary Category Totals. And notice that I immediately got this red background. Now this is new with CESS 2.0, and it's telling us that that name already exists. If I had said totals 2, then I would be able to create a new managed layout, but I want to overwrite the original name Summary Category Totals. And again, this will be saved as a personal layout. Now it already exists. Would you like to overwrite? Again, you're just confirming the red box there, and you say yes. So from now on, regardless of the state of the spreadsheet, we could be sequenced over here by PMIS report. The spreadsheet can be in any state. The trick then is when you're in reports, to get that spreadsheet report out, you've got to click Spreadsheet. That's the key. Click Spreadsheet, and from here on, all we have to do is look at our list of managed report layouts, and we don't have to do any configuration. We just pick the name that we've built in our personal report layouts, export. Let's do that here. This will be the same steps for any report that you want to get out of CESS. We talked about a default export location when we set our default settings, and this is where it comes into play. Notice it ends in the word exports. So go back and review the section on options, and it'll tell you where that comes from. The report name starts with a file name, and then its date and timestamp, and that works fine for us. You have a choice. The two popular choices for us, for CESS users, tends to be a PDF or Excel. And as you can see, there's some other choices here: text file, comma separated value, tab separated value, and so on. But PDF and Excel seem to be the most popular. Now what we're doing here is creating the report on the server location where your default export location exists. This is not on your local machine. This is on the server. Go ahead and save it. To get the report then, go to Spreadsheet again, click Export. You're not going to generate the report a second time. you're going to open that export location here, right-click, copy, and then move to your desktop, right-click, paste. And that'll pull this report down to your local desktop with a copy-paste. Real simple. Let's go through a couple of reports that CESS has developed for us. They're favorites among estimators. They've been developed over many years. They tend to be quite popular. We'll start with the standard report. Now initially you'll want to go to report options. In the case of these canned reports, you don't need to pre-fill from Spreadsheet. All the formatting here has been done for you. But you do get a series of options where you can decide which pricing columns you want to see, your typical allocate add-ons, combine items, that type of thing. And of course you can save those under the standard report banner and start naming all your standard reports that you might want. We'll go back and go again. So it'll go like this. Once you've named the report, it'll be standard. Your report's here. You just would click export. We'll click preview just to get a quick look at it. Get through the cover page. And again, we're by group and phase. And what you see here is the group header, the group overline, then the phase, and then the items within the phase. It also recaps any labor hours you might have, if you happen to have an overline quantity that's here. And it's giving us all 5 cost categories, along with some other information like hours, automatic subtotals, automatic formatting. Not much for you to do other than just name it, click the button, and you'll always get this really good looking report out of CESS. And you can roll these up to the phase level, the group level. You can choose uniformat. All the sorts and sequences are available to you here. We'll look at a detailed report. And again, we can just preview here. We've already named it. This is in uniformat. We'll preview it. You would be exporting it typically. And we're rolled up here to a uniformat 3 level, a nice summary level report. If we want to change that, just to show you one more time where that's at, report options. In the sort tab, you can change the summary level down to detail or up to uniformat 2 or up to uniformat 1 and get your summary reports like that. If that's a report you want to run often, once you make this change, you can go ahead and save the layout under a different name. So you could have uniformat detail, you could have uniformat level 3, level 2, level 1, etc. We won't demo the balance of the reports. The steps are the same, but the icons here of the favorites are repeated at the top. So spreadsheet, then standard estimate, then estimate details. That's these 3 here. But underneath that, you've got unit costs, unit price review. You've got reports that scrape out just the material parts of your estimate. You've got field reports that contain productivities, hours, crews, but not money. There's no money in these reports. So this, again, just like it says, it's a field report. You're giving the content information of your estimate to the field, but you're not showing the dollars. A couple of nice crew reports that'll detail out the resources, the crews, the hours, the productivities. And we will take a look in the next advanced report grouping here at a comparison and variance report. Then additionally, you can get a bill of quantities. This is material again, unit price analysis, and then BidGrid, which we don't see CESS users using BidGrid much, but it is available. It's there if you want to explore that. And the reports obviously are here at the bottom. Let's move on to the advanced report grouping, and let's start with a comparison report. So these are your side-by-sides, and comparison allows you to align up to 10 estimates side by side. But there's no analytics here. It's just the data, the rows that you design from up to 10 estimates side by side. You would typically export that to Excel and then perform any analytics you wanted to do in that Excel sheet. The variance report will allow you to take any two estimates. You're limited to two estimates because it's going to compare estimate 1 and estimate 2 side by side, but it will also produce a delta. You'll get to see the difference, and this will include the totals page. And both these advanced reports have an option for including a table of contents, which is driven by your groupings or your sorting. In our case, it's group and phase, but it could be uniformat or any other sort that you want to come up with. Let's take a look at the comparison report. The comparison report source estimates can take a little bit of time to populate as it's building a list for you of all the possible estimates in CESS. So it's a large file. I would recommend that you use search to limit your view and narrow down all the possibilities. So you'd select your estimates again up to 10, add the estimates to the right-hand pane, click OK, and now you'll get your familiar report options where you can go through and set the same sort of choices that you've seen before, including your sorts and your summary levels. And we'll go ahead and use our pre-built compare that we've saved from before. So our 4 estimate titles, all we ask that it show here are the totals. And you can see you're just getting a side by side. There's no delta, there's no analytics. It's just the row by row comparison against up to the 10 estimates that you've selected. Let's look at the variance report. We're limited to 2 estimates here. Click OK after your selection. We've got a pre-built variance here. We'll go ahead and preview. There's the 2 estimates, and there's the variance column. Nice side by side. No formulas to write, easy to produce. And this happens often to you, I would suspect. If you're doing an in-house estimate, you've done one version of it, time may pass, you may get more information, you do that second version, and you hand the second version to your managers, and of course the first thing they're going to ask you is, well, what did you change? Now, this is a perfect accompaniment to that moment when your project is progressing, you've done a series of estimates, and you can show the folks exactly what's different in any 2 estimates that you submitted. In terms of database reports, we don't see a lot of use for our average CESS workflow, but all the content. But here you can select from most of the content in a CESS database. The database you'd be reporting on would be the one that you happen to be linked to here. So this would be a CESS Data 21 in this example. You could, if you wanted to, pull specific tables out of that database and print them. Let's look at the data ribbon. The data ribbon tends to be a database administrator tool set. Our normal CESS workflow would not involve using these commands. It's for building, deleting, or editing the database content. There are some exceptions. For a dialog, for instance, the WBS will show our WBS settings for our estimate. If it's toggled to database, you won't be able to edit this, but you would be able to edit the estimate version. We recommend you don't make any changes here to existing named WBSs, but you would have the opportunity to take the unused WBSs that we've named by the row number, WBS 13, WBS 14, and you could give these a name. If you had facilities, you were doing roof repairs across 10 buildings in one estimate, you could rename a WBS, you could call it building. You would have a WBS code now that you could track building 1, building 2, building 3, building 4. You can do the same thing. You can leave it alone as WBS19, and you can rename the column heading WBS19 to building. You're not required to come here to rename a WBS to use it. You can use it as WBS19, and in your spreadsheet layout and spreadsheet reports, you can name it building there. Other than that, the recommendation is you wouldn't need to come here and do anything with these data commands. Let's look at the advanced ribbon. In the alternates grouping, this is new to CESS 2.0. You're allowed to set up values for alternate statuses. Typically, they would be things like a pending alternate, an accepted alternate, a rejected alternate. They're user-defined, and you would build them with this dialog. This dialog would come up, you'd click Add, you'd get a row, and you would name that alternate status to any schema where you would want to classify your alternates. Again, the standard values would be pending, accepted, and rejected at a minimum. There could be other ones. And then in this command, the alternates command, this is where you build the alternate itself. Just click Add, you'll get a row, and you could make an ID of alternate 1 or A1 or 1, and then do a description. It would be change roof to tile from composition. And go ahead and list all the different alternates that you want to estimate. When you build your alternates, they function similar to WBS. We're not going to take a deep dive on it here. Again, this is a quick start. We don't see a lot of benefit for our average CESS user creating FMSS work orders. Generally, in that type of workflow, alternates and different schemas for a single job tend to be separate estimates. But the feature is certainly here, and there will be a guide for it on setting up alternates. So we'll prepare you for it. If it's of interest, you'll be able to grab the alternate guide and set them up. In conclusion, once you've set up your schema, you do get a nice summary table here that will show you which alternates are included in your totals and which one you've eliminated from your totals and so on. External tools here tends to be a non-CESS function. You're able to set up additional applications that you can launch from inside CESS. One button's to set up the program, and then the second option list controls where that menu item is hung. But it's an admin feature. We don't see you using it yourself. Other folks might use it to hang some other applications in. So external tools, not used. And that concludes the ribbon demonstration. Prepare a CESS estimate for FMSS. In this section, we'll review the common workflow steps in preparing a CESS estimate for its eventual transfer to Maximo. This will involve costing the estimate, adjusting the totals page, reviewing it for completeness, and closing the estimate. We start with an open shell estimate. We'll be sequencing by the default phase item, meaning we'll see group phase and item number as the grouping columns on the left. The default spreadsheet is cost category totals. That exposes the labor, material, equipment, sub, and other amount, the 5 cost categories we find in CESS, and a crossfoot total, and then a developed unit price. We'll start with Takeoff. Takeoff, or developing the cost part of the estimate, is our principal goal here, so we will explore all 4 takeoff types. We'll start with quick takeoff. We'll start with some personal protective equipment. We'll use our control key to interweave a bit, and we'll use drag and drop to bring over the 5 items we've selected. Our spreadsheet populates. We'll add some quantities. We'll just do this manually. And we'll close quick takeoff. We'll move to item takeoff. We'll vertically scroll to remediation. We'll make our item selections, and we'll drag and drop to the item grid. We'll use the variable pane to populate the quantities, and we'll click OK to add those items to the spreadsheet. Move to Assembly Takeoff. We'll use the jump feature to move to interior assemblies. We're looking for paint. And we'll double click to launch the assembly. And we'll paint the wall that we just decontaminated. We'll click OK and add the assembly to the spreadsheet. We'll move to Model Takeoff for some roof repair. We'll open the renovation folder and we'll launch the interview for Renovate Roofing. Our model reference will be gift shop, and our dimensions are 60 by 40, and we have a 1-story. We'll check for our roof type. We'll change buildup to asphalt shingles. For the rest, we'll take the defaults. We'll click OK, and we'll run scan to verify there are no incomplete entries. We get our success message. We'll click OK. We'll OK the model again. We'll close to return to Model Takeoff. We'll switch from the database list of models to the estimate list. Our model gift shop, it has its green dot. It's good to go, no errors. So we'll choose to generate. From the Generate panel, we only have our one gift shop model. It's pre-selected to generate. We click OK. Our model's generated to the spreadsheet. We'll close Generate Models. We'll close Model Takeoff. We'll review our spreadsheet. Looks like we've got all our CrossFit totals. Back to the Home tab. We'll click Totals to access the Totals page. We'll put in a remoteness factor of 20% and a historical preservation factor for our facility of 50%. Check the total. Save on the Totals page. Close the Totals page. And close the estimate. That completes the preparation of our estimate for FMSS and concludes the CESS Getting Started video.